Hi guys, welcome back to the Scrap Zone. I'm Julie and welcome to the month of May. This week we're going to be working with 4 new sketches and I'm going to be working on this sketch right here. I am pulling some beautiful papers from the You Are Enough paper collection. Now this is a special that's going on for the month of May and I thought that it would be perfect for this month and this little project right here. So I've done some pre-cutting here and I did add a little tiny white border around my photo because it was a little dark. And I'm going to change the orientation of this layout because in my photo I'm kind of looking I'm looking towards the left hand side. I just flipped everything around just to make it work with my picture. I did glue down those 2x2s on a little piece of white, again just to add a little bit of light to my photos. I'm using the months of the year and I'm using the month of May, obviously, and I'm going to show you that you can watercolor using regular ink. You just have to be patient and let it dry. And sometimes it's kind of like the look of the draw, but I'll show you how I did that in a minute. So I was putting this together, I just found that this layout needed just a little oomph. It was kind of blah. Although my week has been kind of blah, to be honest with you. It's been raining, it's cold. It was kind of like these colors were perfect for this week. But I thought, you know what, let's bring in a little bit of design element without overdoing it. So I'm going to use that really nice stitch border, and then I thought, why not use this square border as well? So just by running that at the top and at the bottom, I can now place my photo sandwiched in between those two lines, and it just looks really nice. It's just a little detail, but it looks really pretty. This 4x4 frame here, I found it was easier to put it down on a piece of white cardstock and then just add your picture right inside the frame. So I'm going to add a little bit of ink distressing on the cardstock, and I'm just kind of covering the white core. And that's just something that I like to do. I'm not a fan of the white core. Sometimes I am, but sometimes I'm not. So I've got the option, which is nice. And then I'm going to add it here around my page. And you know what? To be honest with you, I didn't really like the extra blue all around the page, but you know what? I started, so I had to finish. So if you're doing something similar, I would go with probably like a gray as opposed to a blue. Or who knows, maybe you like the blue. I wasn't, maybe it's just been that kind of week, who knows. So anyways, I'm going to add a little bit of blue to my stamped image here, and I'm going to start putting my layout together. So we're going to pop this right at the bottom, and I did use a full 6x8 sheet, only because I don't think I'm going to use that bottom piece for something else. And then I'm going to add my little pictures here at the bottom. So these are pretty flowers in our neighborhood. They are not my flowers. I can make pretty paper flowers, but growing them outside, it's a bit of a challenge. Anyways, I was looking for something nice and bright this week because, as I said before, it was really raining a lot and it's still quite cold. So I'm kind of showing you that I've flipped over that layout. So don't let that layout be the boss of you. It's meant to inspire you to place your pictures, but don't be afraid to flip things around. Make it like upside down, right side up, whichever way works with your photos. As you can see here, my photo, because of how I was positioned in the photo, it would have looked a little awkward if I would have placed it as the sketch was, I guess, suggesting I would do. So let's add that little picture right inside. Actually, it's a 4x4 picture, and I just use a little bit of glue. I don't use liquid glue on my pictures because sometimes they tend to buckle a little bit, so I just prefer using double-sided tape. And I'm going to pop that right at the top here. And can you see with that white border, that photo instantly looks brighter. So that's kind of like a little tip for you guys. If some of your pictures are a little bit dull or a little bit dark and you can't brighten them up, adding a little white border makes all the difference. So let's add this little stamped image here with 3D foam tape, and I am using the thin 3D foam tape. And let me show you how I colored in those images. Now you have to let them sit, like preferably overnight, but if you're like me and you just want to get your layout done, I kind of waited about an hour. I'm going to squish some of that ink into the lid. Now you have to make sure that you get some ink in there. Even if you don't, might be time to get a re-inker. So here what I'm doing is that I'm picking up the ink. Now the brush of my water brush is wet, but I'm not adding any water, and I'm trying to stay away from the stamped image, like those lines that are in the sapphire ink. I'm really trying to stay away from them, and I'm just picking up the ink from the lid. Because the brush is wet, you'll actually be able to do so, and I'm not adding any more water onto this image. Now that's the trick. It doesn't always work, so that's why I like to stamp two, just in case. So you saw me here, I did the same thing. I squished that ink into the lid of my ink pad, and then I'm just picking up that color and I'm just adding it to the image. Now this last little leaf here, it's got a lot of like printed surfaces, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to kind of take that last little drip of water and I'm just going to rub it off on just a Kleenex just to make sure that that brush is nice and dry. Now this first one turned out, this one here you can see that it bled a tiny little bit. Now that's okay, that's why I always do two, just in case. And now I'm just going to go ahead here and I'm going to fussy cut that little flower. And if you've been here before, you know that I'm a left-handed crafter, and fussy cutting, it is not my favorite thing to do. But you know what? Sometimes you just have to kind of step out of your comfort zone and just go ahead and fussy cut those cute little images, because at the end they look really, really good. So I'm going to stamp here my little week. So we are on week 18, and I'm going to use grape. And believe it or not, that grape color really, really works nicely with that You Are Enough paper collection. So I'm going to stamp those little tiles, and when I stamp them, you'll see here that I'm kind of pushing down and I'm waiting just a little minute, and that way it gives the ink a chance to absorb and you get a nice crisp image. So when I cut these little tiles, I always leave like a little tail at the bottom of them. It just makes it a lot easier when you glue them either underneath or wherever I glue them down, especially if they go underneath a picture frame. I kind of like to have a little bit of a tail. And here I'm just going to add my journaling, and it's simple. Like basically it's just saying, yeah, it's been a really long, wet, cold week, and nobody gets happier than my kids when I come home with a box of donut. Okay, might not be the healthiest thing, but you know what? Sometimes you just got to do what you've got to do. So here I'm adding some glue, and a little bit too much came out. So I'm just going to like rub some off, and whoop. It's a good thing I didn't have too much glue. I'm just going to put that on my layout. Now the hardest thing here is not to put too much glue, and the second hardest thing here is to remember in which order you typed your journaling and put that in the correct order. Ask me how I know that. Anyways, so this journaling is really simple. I know that a lot of people don't like to journal, but you know what? My advice to you is that just jot down a few little words. Just pretend you're creating a post on Facebook and add just a few little words so that when you go back to this in a year or two, you'll know just by those words how you felt. and honestly, this week was a long and cold week. I think I've said that 3 times, so must have been, right? So here you see that I'm putting my little weeks down, my little tiles to spell out the week. And I really like that little tail. It just makes it so much easier to tack that down. Now, I don't know, even if it's a small layout, every layout needs a little bit of bling. So I'm going to add a few of these clear gems here, or these clear sparkles. I use the regular size, and then here I'm just adding those bitty ones. Now they are very tiny, but they look good. So I'm going to add that to the top of my image. And we're done week number 18. So you can watercolor using regular ink, but you just have to let it dry. So as always, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And don't forget to take pictures. If you want to see the complete playlist, click this link right here.